I really enjoy watching people grow. Goal is to continue to always grow and never stop learning, because that ties back to them being professionally more happy. For me, the number one thing is assume positive intent. That's the key concept, is you're joining a family. My life goal is to develop stronger and better people and create a better society than what I came into. For me to avoid burnout, I had to communicate both with my wife as well as with my kids. When I'm home, right? There, you put your phone away, and unless you send me pigeons, I won't have access to any form of communication.
After a decade of leading teams in the tech industry, mentoring and developing people, observing professionals go through various stages in their career growth, having lived through a few burnouts personally, and seen others feeling empty and unfulfilled despite professional success, I'm curious to interview some of the most happy and fulfilled people in the tech world that I have met over the years to learn about what it is that drives their sense of joy and happiness. My name is Kiril Abazher, and this is Happy Tech, podcast about how to be happy in the tech industry. On the call today is Yev Irkhin, who's been a good friend of mine ever since we met a few years ago. Yev has worked in tech all his life. He had a very successful career at Twillio and then launched several tech businesses of his own, which he currently runs. After we went surfing at 6 a.m. on a weekday, I realized this guy knows something about happiness that I don't. And so I invite you into our conversation so we can learn from him together. Thanks so much for joining today. It's so good to have you. I was really looking forward to this time and this conversation with you because obviously you're one of the most happy people that I've met over the years, particularly in the tech industry. So let's just jump right into it. And let's start with the first question. Tell me, what do you love about what you do? What is it that actually makes you happy in your professional life?
First off, thank you for having me on. To answer your question, it's professional life. I really enjoy watching people grow, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with work. And so I love watching people grow spiritually, mentally maturing, financially, technically, professionally, physically, even relationally, on how to be a better spouse, how to be a better father or partner. And so the goal is to continue to always grow and never stop learning. And so that touches me both personally and professionally, and that's where they marry the two. For me, it's to continue to develop my teams of people and have the same expectation of them, is that they're going to continue to grow. And it's not just at work. I want them to grow at home. I want them to continue to grow as better fathers, as better spouses, as kids, and in their relationships. I want them to have financial literacy as well as relational, because that ties back to them being professionally more happy. And so when I take care of my employees, they tend to care more for our customers and for their work. And so it starts to create this ease for them, that it's less of a burden for them to carry. And so then we do it together. If they have questions, come ask me. And so it starts to build this reputation and relationship more than just a boss and employee.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool that you have this holistic approach and you not only care for people in their profession and not just about how they do at work with you and the output that they bring to you, but that you look far beyond that. And to be honest with you, it's pretty rare. I certainly didn't expect that sort of answer to the question, but it totally makes sense. I definitely understand you. I would say that this is probably one of the things that truly brings me joy in what I do as well is when you see people perform at a certain level, and then after mentoring them, working with them, exposing them, creating opportunities for them, you see them do much better over time. It certainly truly brings some joy and fulfillment. So that's pretty cool. What do you do to maintain your inspiration or your level of happiness? How do you manage that?
So I think for me, the number one thing is assume positive intent, right? I think that's the approach. I think there's two different approaches for people. One is my side of it is assume positive intent and that people have the right intentionality behind what they're doing or asking. And so for me, it's you have 100% of my trust until you lose it. It's up to you to lose it. I think there's the other side where a lot of people will go, hey, you have zero trust until you gain it. And so on my end, it's I assume positive intent. We've interviewed, you've joined the company, right? You've gone through a whole entire vetting process and the background check. So you are one of us and you are family at this point. And so I think that's the key concept is you're joining a family. And so when you talk about family, that's much broader, right? And so the definition is there's a closeness, a closer community that you can really step into, and what I'm going to say is share the burden of life together, which is what you do as a family. And so that's the key piece for me is as folks step in and join, it's assuming positive intent. The other one is for me, my definition is also I'm a Christian. And so for me, it's that positive. I'm going to operate in the light. I'm going to operate in doing what is right, both doing what is right for the customers, doing what's right for our employees, doing what's right, everything that's under God's light. And so I'm going to operate in that standard, which then eases my burden of what I'm attempting to do.
That's pretty cool. So one is assuming the best of people, and then two is your faith and just having the positive expectations and this optimistic and really faith-filled worldview on different situations, and those are the things that help you maintain your inspiration. That's pretty cool. So how about this? Did you ever experience a burnout?
Definitely.
You did.
I would say it, especially when I was younger. And I think the burnout piece when I was younger was I have a drive to prove that I'm going to be something given all of my mistakes. That causes me to run at 300 miles an hour, and then physically you burn out. Mentally you burn out. And so for me, it was physically collapsing out because I would push myself physically both at the gym and go all in. I would power lift as much as I can. So I weighed 170 pounds and I would do 400-pound lifts. And so I would out press anybody. And if there was somebody stronger, I will go after them until I got above them. At some point, your body gives up. And so that happened to me then. I went through a mental breakdown as well. And so there's a definition of, wait, what do you mean I'm not capable of doing this? And so the pursuit of I'm going to be the smartest person in the room and surround myself with the smartest people in the room. And so you go through these stages of trying to prove yourself one way or another. And naturally, I would say I'm not a competitive person. But that was a tendency for me to try to prove myself. My life goal is to develop stronger and better people and create a better society than what I came into. And so that then creates that inspiration. And then at the same time, trying to alleviate the burnout for others from what I've gone through.
That sounds pretty cool. So a couple of things on that note. Number one, I'm so glad I'm not the only one who made mistakes when he was younger. Number two, I'm so glad I didn't meet you back then. I'm so glad that I met you a couple of years ago, because you
Oh,
do sound that you were pretty competitive, and so the things that caused contributed to you having mental, physical, emotional breakdowns and burnouts were that it sounds like that you were demanding um, much more from yourself. You were too hard on yourself, and at certain times for the wrong motives, right? It wasn't even maybe something that you wanted or you needed. It was something that you felt you may need to prove to somebody.
100%.
So yeah, that's sounds familiar. I can resonate with that. So how do you, now that you've lived through that, and maybe you've partially answered this earlier, but how do you avoid burnout now? Because of those extreme experiences, did you put some, I don't know, the boundaries in place, or something for yourself? If so, what would they be?
Exactly. And there's my number one recommendation out of the gate is there's actually a book called Boundaries by John Townsend.
Huh.
And so I will say it was life changing for me, as well as then I had my wife read it, and then I had my siblings read it. I've had other friends go out and read it and re-go through it together. And it's huge because it really focuses on setting boundaries in all areas of your life, both with friends, even with siblings, and with family. As close as we are, there's still a boundary, but it's not just creating a boundary and saying that I set it. There's a different side of it, which is what I'm leading into, and that's the communication piece. For me to avoid burnout, I had to communicate both with my wife as well as with my kids, who are little kids, but even walking them through it, and all of my business partners, all of my direct reports, and being able to communicate with them saying, these are the hours that I'm committed to being here and being online and active. Obviously, we all have emergencies, and I get it. But same goes for home, where when I'm home, right there. You put your phone away, whether you wear a watch or not, whatever that form of communication is, and spending that time and being present. And so with my wife, and I'll use this as an example. I ride bikes. I mountain bike. I road bike. I gravel bike. I surf. And then I have my whole entire friend circle outside of that. And so having the space to be able to do that, and at the same time to be a professional and be a spouse as well as being a father,
Hmm.
are all very different lines. And so having this space where I feel I get my physical and spiritual recharge by being active, physically active, and so going out and enjoying nature, that's one of the ways that I recharge and I spend time in prayer, is by being active. And so then I'm not relying on my own physical energy. I rely on my spiritual side to also step in.
Sure.
And so creating that space and communicating that both with work, that I won't be online and active from the hours of 5:30 in the morning until 8:30 in the morning because I'm out and active.
Hmm.
And then with my wife as well, I have a few days a week that I'm out and I'm busy and I'm active doing these things in order to recharge. And these are the days I'm home. I will go take the girls to school or take them out to summer camp,
Hmm.
whatever that case is. But being able to communicate that with her and with my team at the office was crucial, as well as vice versa with the team at the office. I'm committed to being here these hours, uh, and this is when I'm available and online and things that I'm actively pursuing and working through.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Phew, yeah, I have some work to do. It sounds like you've obviously you've thought through and worked through this area of your life pretty well, and have quite a bit of boundaries in place. And it's amazing that you're so open about it, that you acknowledge it to yourself, and you make that known to others, to your wife, to your kids, to your friends, to your business partners, to your colleagues at work. That's pretty cool. I think, yeah, if those things are defined and communicated, sure, then it is probably a lot easier to maintain this balance in life. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So the book is called Boundaries, you say?
Correct. Boundaries by John Townsend.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So have on to the next question. Have you ever taken a sabbatical leave, or do you know someone who took it? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, for me specifically, as a complete definition of sabbatical leave, I would say no. My clear answer on that is no. Have I taken time off to recuperate and to spend time away from work and even from family? Yes. And so there's a clear conscience decision to be made that I've had to communicate with my wife and say, hey, I'm going on a 4-day trip by myself to the middle of nowhere because I want to just sit, to read, to pray, and to have no access to email, phone, or anything else. And so in that case, yes, I've taken the time out and the break to do so, but also at the same time being able to communicate that and go, sorry, you guys are not going to be able to reach me whether you want to or not, as I will, unless you send me pigeons, I won't have access to any form of communication.
Okay, you've had your fair share of burnouts and stress experiences. You came to a point where you realized you need to have some sort of boundaries. You took on the roles and responsibilities, and you feel good about yourself. You have all of these processes in place, and you maintain yourself well. And then life happens, right? So, something unexpected. And more often than not, it may be at the same time, it may happen in family or in personal life and at work, unexpected load of work, unexpected stress situations that you didn't plan for. I mean, obviously we have the practices and routines for expected stress, for scheduled stress. But then on top of that, when you're already maxed out, and on top of that, when unexpected stress piles up, how do you work through those days, weeks, through that period of time?
I think it comes down to perspective. And I will break that down in a way that, one, the perspective and the lens that you have on, one, communicate that. You need to be able to communicate that you are stressed, both as an employee, as a colleague. I will share that with my peers on, hey, I'm feeling stressed. I need to take a day to figure out what is causing this. And once I come back from that day, a lot of times I come back with a list, and then I will go through and prioritize that. Because if you can break down and define what's causing that stress, then you're able to go through and figure out what you're able to handle and what you need to be able to hand off, right? Or say, I need help. As a COO, I don't know everything. And I will be the first one to state, I don't know everything. But I have a lot of peers and a lot of colleagues and a lot of friends and mentors that I can reach out to, and advisors that will guide me and tell me and walk with me or walk me through what I should do and how I should go pursue a certain issue. And so that's where, if I don't spend the time to break that down and prioritize it, that stress and anxiety can build, and then it creates a lack of motivation to even want to go address it, because I'm building it larger in my head than anything else. And so the lists will continue to build, but it's about creating a list and prioritizing that list and then breaking it down and going through it of, am I going to be able to successfully complete these? If not, then I need to be able to effectively communicate that with my peers or with my leadership, that I won't be able to address all of these in this given time. And so the unexpected will happen, and life happens. It's a matter of how you approach it. And the second side to it, and this is where I think from a lens perspective, life will always happen. But I think that the big thing is going to be, it's just a season. Right. And so it's being able to look at it from the exercise of your whole entire life is, a 5-foot string. The snippet of it is less than a millimeter in size that you're about to go through. And so given the grand scheme of things, is it worth the level of stress and anxiety that you're most likely mentally creating for yourself?
Is there anything else that you think that you would just maybe recommend to people who are not feeling happy in their work, or maybe they're feeling a bit burned out or on the edge? Is there anything else that you would recommend they do? Any thoughts on that?
I think part of it is just creating discipline for yourself. And so that goes to how we communicate, how we structure our lives, and that goes to both personal and professional, right? And so I'm somebody who, as a younger kid, I loved to party, I loved to stay up late and go through that scene, which didn't lead me in a great trajectory or a great professional atmosphere. It didn't do anything that really created opportunities for me to grow. And so when I spent the time to focus and to actually educate myself, I found that I'm way more active of a morning person, and I have a lot more that I get done. And so I've started to dial my clock back, where at first I had a hard time waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then it was 7 o'clock in the morning, and then it was 6, and then it was 5. Now I'm up at 4:15 most mornings to start my day. Wow. But I go to bed earlier. And so sometimes people will laugh and say, "Oh, you're an old grandpa. You go to bed at 9 o'clock." I say, no, I'll still go 10 to 10:30. Right. I'll get a little less sleep. But what I focus on is, if I'm physically active, I sleep better. What happens is, when the sun goes down, I don't have the necessity to have alcohol in my system, which creates more sugar or anything else. And so it's this process that follows you day in and day out. And so one day of staying up too late will impact 2 days of recovery time. And so creating this space for discipline for how much you sleep and how you work out and how you eat, what you read and how you consume things, all then become outward reactions to the stressors in your life. And so how you consume material, whether it's the news, and in the US, the politics is huge right now. And so I turned it off, and guess what? I'm not delayed by any of the media, because everyone around me is talking about it. And so I'm not losing any of the content, but I'm not stressing myself out sitting there reading it.
Yeah.
And so I still get the same news feeds, but I'm able to sleep better at night, knowing that I'm not spending the last portion of my night focusing on that before I close my eyes and go to bed. So I'm not then staying up half the night stressing about it in my sleep. And so I can sleep deeper, I can sleep better, I'm more active and better performing the following day.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah, this is really exciting. So creating discipline for yourself in all of these different areas that you've named. Awesome. I actually, to be honest, it's quite an unexpected answer to this question. And I really like that.
And I'll add one more thing to that, is that for those of you that are married or those that have kids, what this does is it starts to set an example for your family. Right. And so for me, my wife wasn't a morning person as well. And so she started to become more of a morning person. My girls are now super active in the morning. And so a lot of times they're up at 5 to 6 o'clock in the morning and they're like, Dad, can we go biking with you? Can we go surfing with you? And so it's become activities that we can do together, and they're more energized on their way to school or on their way to camp. And so they're physically tired, but emotionally they're on fire because that spark has been created there. And so that's now become a generational impact for them and what they find excitement in. And so you are the one setting examples for your spouses and your family members, and then for others around you.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, thank you so much for sharing your story, for being open and transparent and vulnerable. Really, thank you for the insights, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate your everything you've shared, and I'm looking forward to hearing the stories and the feedback from people when they hear all of this, because I mean, I took a lot out of it, and I'm confident that many people will find it really helpful. So really, thank you, Yev.
Thank you so much for having me on, and happy to share or have folks reach out if they have additional questions. So thanks for the time.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. I hope it was useful for you. If you thought of someone who you think might need to hear some of this stuff, I encourage you to share this episode with them. Again, thanks for listening, and if you want to hear more fresh perspectives from other people, leave me a comment or send a feedback note, and I'll keep recording this and share what I learned from others. Have a terrific day.